So how has Russian propaganda evolved recently? What do you think?
Well, Russian propaganda is stable in spreading the disinformation narratives because actually we can call Russian propaganda a coordinated governmental policy aiming at achieving the geopolitical results. So it has strict rules because when we invest in propaganda, you need to make sure that all your narratives, they are still alive. So the major narratives that were spread even before the full-scale invasion, before 2022, they are still alive. They try to convince the world that Ukraine is a failed state, that they have the cultural and historical rights to fight the lands in Ukraine, to fight Ukrainian people. They say that actually we are one nation, let's say one people, like Russians and Ukrainians. And and it's like the war was started by the Western countries, not Russia. So Russia is pretending to be a victim of this war. And like before 2022, of course, they were trying to polarize the population in Ukraine. This was the religious aspects and the language aspects, Russian, Ukrainian language, etc. But for European countries, they were trying to promote the narrative that Ukraine is kind of weak. Nobody will fight for Ukraine as a country. And in case Russia starting with the war in Ukraine, most likely Ukraine will give up. So that's why, of course, European countries were not prepared at all for helping us. And they really thought that there is no potential in Ukrainian society that someone will stand for Ukraine and for the state of Ukraine. And now what we see is almost the same, because they try to now convince Ukrainians through different channels that Western allies won't support Ukraine for long, because now it's, there is a war in Israel, Hamas conflict, and, the support of the Western world will be moved toward this part of the world, and Ukraine will be left aside. And that's why Ukrainians probably should think about giving up. It's at least those territories which are occupied already by Russia. And of course, they also try to promote the panicking in Ukrainian society, that the war will last very long. And again, like this winter will be very harsh. And this will never stop, because Russia is a very strong enemy. And they try to convince us that we simply don't have enough resources for fighting. Actually, this is one of the components of convincing us in this narrative is the reflexive control. This lies in the center of the Russian propaganda. This methodology is used for convincing your enemy, let's say, that he or she is weaker than he or she is in reality, because you try to control the decisions of the opponent by trying to convince them that they are actually weaker, and it's better not to fight back and just give up. While at the same time, your enemy can be actually very strong and have enough of power to fight back. But from the psychological point of view, when reflexive control is kind of successful, your opponent, this is like a moral thing, of course. So when you see it, you can actually see a lot of stuff like that in sport, when the opponents try to depress morally themselves, because if you know that somebody is really stronger than you are and have the potential, let's say in this war we have like more potential on the technological side, because we have better equipment and better military. But of course, Russia is afraid of the weapon that are provided by the Western allies. So they try to convince ourselves still we are weaker than they are. So yes, this is like one of the components which can be used as well.